Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the fascinating teachings of the Life-Chain Yuan founder, the guide Xifeng. Specifically, we're going to unpack his essay, Trust is Honey and Mistrust is a Dagger, to really get a grip on the invisible forces that either build up our human connections or completely break them apart. Right off the bat, Xifeng presents a really powerful core thesis. He argues that trust isn't just some nice, polite social concept, it's actually a tremendous invisible power. In his teachings, trust is literally the foundation of a heavenly kingdom. It mirrors that pure, natural instinct we see in children. Mistrust, on the flip side, it's a highly destructive, violent force. It's a pretty stark contrast, and honestly, it has massive implications for how we go about our daily lives. Part 1. Trust is honey. Let's dive right into the incredible, life-saving power of belief. To really understand this, let's look at a documented modern miracle from the devastating 1989 Los Angeles earthquake. In less than 4 minutes, the quake injured roughly 300,000 people. Amidst all this absolute chaos, a young father, after making sure his injured wife was safe, sprinted to his 7-year-old son's school. But when he got there, the school was just gone. It was a terrifying pile of rubble. You can imagine, he was completely paralyzed by the sight. But then, falling to his knees, he suddenly remembered this phrase he used to repeat to his son, Amanda. He'd always tell him, "I will always be with you no matter what happens." And he clung to that. He completely ignored the police telling him to go home. He ignored the fire chief warning about gas explosions. And he even tuned out the other heartbroken parents who had already given up. He just locked on to the power of that promise. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the sheer endurance of trust. Nobody would help him, so he just started digging by himself. 8 hours went by, then 12, 24, 36 hours. His hands are literally bleeding. His clothes are shredded. Finally, at the 38-hour mark, he hears this faint little voice coming from under the concrete. It was his son asking, "Dad, is it you?" The dad shouted back, confirming he was there. But the truly miraculous part is what his son said next. The boy explained that in the pitch black, he kept his classmates brave by telling them that as long as his dad was alive, he would come for them. Because of that promise, and because that little boy completely trusted his father's word, 14 children miraculously survived in a tiny air pocket. Their mutual, unwavering trust literally saved their lives. So Xifeng maps out this dichotomy perfectly. On one hand, you have trust acting as this heavenly, invisible power that can pull people right out of the rubble. And on the other hand, you have mistrust, which he compares to a sharp dagger that just leads straight to tragedy. So, having seen the honey, we really need to examine the dagger. Part 2, the dagger of mistrust. Let's see how this acts as a killing blade in our relationships. Xifeng shares the story of a couple who were once deeply in love, but their whole marriage started spiraling downward the day the wife saw her husband secretly handing cash to a pretty woman. Instantly, she suspected he was cheating. From that exact moment, she was relentlessly on edge, throwing huge tantrums whenever he even spoke to another woman. Eventually, the husband was just so exhausted by the constant paranoia that he filed for divorce. But here is the totally tragic irony of this whole situation. After all that suspicion, all the yelling, and a completely shattered marriage, who do you think this mystery woman actually was? She was the husband's sister. Yeah, his own sister. The crucial takeaway here is that because the wife was standing just a little too far away to see clearly, she let ungrounded mistrust fill in the blanks. Her suspicion tore her perfect paradise into a living hell. She essentially raised a dagger against her own marriage, based entirely on a total illusion. And historically, we've actually seen this exact chain reaction of tragedy on a much larger scale. Back in the spring and autumn period, there was a famous exile named Wu Zixu who was fleeing persecution. An old fisherman bravely risked his own life to help Wu cross a river, but Wu's deep paranoia kicked in, and he begged the fisherman not to tell anyone where he went. Well, the fisherman was so deeply insulted that his noble character was being doubted right after saving a guy's life that he drowned himself just to prove his loyalty. Later on, a woman washing yarn gave the starving Wu some food. Again, he warned her not to speak of him. Heartbroken by his unyielding suspicion, she drowned herself too. This intensely sorrowful history leads Xifeng to a pretty harrowing conclusion. He says that mistrust between men is nothing less than a dagger that kills people without spilling blood. Just one word of doubt, Just one tiny moment of ungrounded suspicion can be a completely lethal weapon to a noble person's character. Part 3. Choosing heaven over hell. Let's bring this into the modern world. How do we apply this? Well, Xu Feng experienced two incredibly contrasting moments that really shaped his worldview. In the 1980s, he was at a bookstore in Lanzhou. On his way out, a clerk suspiciously demanded to search his bag. Since he was raised to never steal, Xu Feng actually wept tears of pure humiliation. He was treated like a criminal for absolutely no reason. Now contrast that with something that happened years later at a supermarket in Harare, Zimbabwe. Xu Feng handed a massive stack of cash, over 100,000 yuan, to a cashier, and the cashier just dropped it straight into the register. Didn't even count it.
Sui Feng was just stunned by this. He literally had to ask. He looks at the cashier and says, "Why don't you count it? I mean, it's a huge sum of money. In a world that is so full of suspicion, why would you just accept it blindly like that?" The cashier's reply was wonderfully simple. They just smiled and said, "I trust you." Xu Feng notes that in that exact fraction of a second, he felt this overwhelming joy, like he had literally just stepped into a heavenly kingdom. It proved to him that basic, everyday trust is the absolute key to building a beautiful, connected future together. As we wrap up this explainer on the profound teachings of the guide Xu Feng, we're left with this really urgent plea from his writings. Ungrounded mistrust is a sharp killing dagger. Please don't raise the butchering dagger recklessly. We really have to drop these weapons of suspicion that just sever our human connections. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder today. In a world where every single interaction gives you a choice, where you can either wield a dagger of doubt or offer the honey of belief, how will you cultivate the invisible power of trust to build your own heavenly kingdom today?